Hi, and welcome to another edition to the Journey to Awakening podcast. I'm your host, Ron Ario, author of Journey to Awakening and the Quantum Performance Coach. And I have with me today a special woman, Vicki Bennett. And Vicki, I'm really happy you reached out to come on because I think you have some very valuable insights to share. And let me share a little bit about you just momentarily. Okay, so Vicki is an author, a corporate trainer, and an artist. She's written 30 books and written and co-produced a documentary, Never Forget Australia. And Vicki, as I go through these books, you started writing in 1984, but from 2001, I don't think you took a year off. You have something published every year between now and 2020. And of course, your book you're going to talk about today is Antidotes for Anxiety, and I'm happy to get into that. But what has inspired you to keep so busy, for God's sakes?
Well, I'm a creative being, like we all are, and I just have a lot of ideas going at once. And I'm I really enjoy the whole process of combination play. So I'll have a script going over there. I'll have some corporate training happening here. I'll have a painting. I've got a lovely painting just over in the corner there. The one behind me is one I've done.
Nice.
And of Bali. And, you know, everything connects to each other. And I think that we need to remember that, the synchronicity of our brains and our hearts and our gut, the synchronicity of being able to have many ideas going at the one time, and they all feed each other. They all love each other. So, you know, if I'm doing something over there, I'll come back and it will add value to 15 or 20 minutes that I work on a book that day. Or when I pick up my spatula and start with the colour blue, which I'm going to do this afternoon, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I know what I'm doing right now is somehow influencing it, and we need to be open to that. Everyone has that great capacity for creative combination play.
Yes.
So that's why I've been doing it. And I can't help myself. It's just how I play. It's how I do.
Right. I get it. I get it. I'm experiencing that right now. You know, it's interesting how in the last 6 months under this COVID thing, when it first came about, it seemed like everybody was in a panic because it seemed to stop the momentum of what seemed to be happening to be a nice momentum for a lot of people, including myself. And I must say that the last 6 months have probably been some of the most flowing moments in my life. Just connecting and allowing and letting go, and then just watching everything start to move into place where I was forced to get out of the way, you know? And that's really interesting what's happening. So I have a question for you. Okay. Are there any experiences in your childhood that indicated to you that you wanted to make a difference for others? Was there a moment in time when...
There was a moment in time, and it was in adversity, when I would have been about 7 or 8, and I was put in a position where I had to reach in to a part of me and know that I was safe within myself. And I did. And I actually remember that pivotal moment. And I'm so grateful for having that and having the recognition of that so early in life, because that's the fundamental basis of my resilience, my creativity, my ability to know that hope is a real thing. And I wrote my book of hope because, as an antidote for anxiety, because hope is, to me, optimism, and optimism with action, not positivity, not superficiality, but optimism and action, little tiny things, so that when you get an idea, when you get a feeling, when you get inspired in some small way to actually act upon it. And we all need to do that because we're creative geniuses, every single one of us. And we self-talk ourselves out of our intuition and out of our great genius and out of our inspiration. And I think we need to be more hopeful. And I was working with a group on Saturday. We have rules in place in Australia, different rules for different states, as I'm sure you have in America. But I was allowed 10 people, and we were all in this proper space in the group. And I asked each person if they are hopeful that we will come out of COVID in a very positive and more fruitful way. And each one of them shot their hands up really quickly. So I think that hope is a wonderful antidote for the anxiety that we're feeling right now.
Yeah, yeah. And I got to tell you, I think one of the adjustments I've made in my life, and I actually had to make a commitment to it. I have like 10 questions at the same time I want to ask you, but I'll just let this one come out right now. And that is just trusting my feeling. I said, well, back after I went through my awakening in 2014, I said, I'm going to trust that voice, even if it takes me walking off the cliff. In other words, if I'm not trusting that voice and I walk off the cliff, I'm willing to suffer the consequences of walking off the cliff so that I can discern what voice it is I'm following, right? And so what I've been able to do in that process is start to dissect the moment. And it's so subtle when you get between the pixels in the moment, and then you feel the one that says, this go that way. That one feels the best. But sometimes we're so distracted that we can't even discern what the best choice in the moment is. But it's a process to take one step after another and go, okay, this feels like the last time. I'm going to continue to move this way, and then this way, and then this way, and it's magic. It's really magic that comes out. And yeah. And I also noticed that when I made a decision to be of absolute service, that there was a benevolence that was supporting my life. There was an intangible, if not tangible, quality that you almost felt sometimes. I'm
very committed to that as well. But my service comes from a deep service to myself first, as in honouring and recognising and loving myself deeply, because then I'm free in an authentic way to serve others. And that to me is that pure love that we have in all of it. Yeah.
Everything
comes. Can you
it's
hear
okay.
me? Hello. She wants to be part of this. This is great. She said, "Come on down."
She's more than welcome. And I have some birds and maybe even some rain that'll happen in the background, so we don't know. She's more than welcome to join us. So let me ask you. Back in 1980, you were a lone wolf.
Oh yeah.
You were a lone wolf, and not just being a lone wolf. You were in a time where women were still fighting for their voice, and yet you're coming out writing leadership books and doing all kinds of stuff back then. Where did you get the courage to do that?
Well, I actually have a beloved American author called Og Mandino. You might remember him from the 70s and 80s.
Yes. The salesperson.
His books were groundbreaking. And I went to a conference in America, and it would be 1982. And she's got a gorgeous tail, hasn't she? And I went to this conference, and because I was the only person from Australia who was at the conference, they invited me to be part of the international group. So we went up and had a special dinner. And I was sitting next to Og Mandino. I couldn't believe
Oh my God.
Anyway, he said to me in the second or third question, he said to me, so have you got a book? I said, oh, well, we meant to bring a book with us. And he said, no, have you written a book? And I said, no. And he said, wow, you've got to get a book. You've got to have an extension of your, your beliefs and your who you are in the marketplace. And he said, and I have a very strong feeling that you're going to write a lot of them. And on the way home, synchronicity had its way, and I was upgraded to business class. And guess who wrote the beginnings of that book on the way home to Australia in the plane?
Oh my God.
So I have Nandino to thank for that. And then I wrote my first book called Program to Succeed. I couldn't get it published in the 80s. I couldn't get it published for a lot of those reasons that you mentioned. So I found the money and I paid for it and did it myself. And it was very successful because I was going over to Asia a lot. So I was able to sell it to the big groups that I worked with over there. But I was certainly, because when I started my own company in 1979, Vicki Bennett Training, there wasn't a section in the yellow pages. Do you have yellow pages? Where you put where
we had the yellow pages, yes.
Well, in the yellow, I had to actually champion for a section on training because there wasn't a section on training. So I got a section on training and I was it.
That's amazing.
Very funny.
That's amazing. So who OG Mendino has been a mentor of yours? Who else has been a mentor of yours? I'm curious.
Oh, I think Jim Rohn came out to Brisbane.
Yeah.
Came out. And certainly now people like Elizabeth Gilbert, who's written that fabulous book, Big Magic, and about the writing process. She also wrote, of course, Eat, Pray, Love, but her book called Big Magic is wonderful. And Brené Brown is a great influence in my life. And we have some fabulous people in Australia, people that I know. My butcher is a great inspiration for me. He's always so positive. He's always got something, insightful to say if I can stop and listen. So yes, inspiration is all around.
So here's another question for you.
Yeah.
So I immediately felt your energy when we started talking, and I just realized she gets it. She's there. She's got it big time. And God, another question just came up from that. So how did you go through an awakening? Did you go through a process where you actually had a visceral response to the world not working the way you thought it would, and that you knew? Because
huge.
I remember. Okay, go ahead. Can you explain that? What's that?
I want to hear yours as well. But there was a tiny introduction when I was about 15. My dad bought a book and gave it to me called I Can by Ben Sweetland. I'm pretty sure another American author. And I read it and I thought, oh, visualization. Oh my giddy aunt. How fabulous. And instead of using it for the good of my education, I used it to visualize the boy that I wanted to take me out on Saturday night for a month. And I visualized him walking up the path and knocking on the door and coming in and meeting my parents anyway. Of course, it came true. And that was really interesting. So I was so clearly, I guess, recruited for that visualization process, because I just saw that it was just, creating the vision that you want to create rather than worry, which is thinking about things you don't want to happen. So I was on board. But I was newly married and I was confused and very, very unhappy. I think I was 22 and I just, life wasn't how I thought it was going to be. And I just was sitting one afternoon. I'd come home from work early and the yellow pages I opened up. I just said, I need a message. I need some help. I opened up the yellow pages and there was an energy centre, and I thought, energy centre, I wonder what that's about. Anyway, I rang them, and I was introduced to the chakras of the body, and from 22 to 25 I went there diligently every week and meditated with somebody who was helping me, guiding me. And I just meditated on the different chakras in my body. And it was really interesting because I never thought I'd leave my heart. I had to stay on that heart for a very long time because there was a lot of healing that I needed to do to open my heart. And that was the beginning of a spiritual awakening for me, that every corner I turned, my next step and my next step and my next step always was shown to me.
And so that was back around and or before 1980, right? So my whole point in asking that question is, I remember I think I've been awakening my whole life, to be quite honest with you. I can remember back to 3.5 years old, right? But really, when I first started having the synchronicities, was in the late 80s, and then having to be different than everybody all the time. That I know that. Did you go through levels of so you went through the initial awakening, but didn't you have other levels that came on as you went, like deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper? Did any just completely throw you off track?
Well, life is messy, you know. And I've been married twice and separated twice, and I've had lots of life. And it's been part of the journey is to develop the tools and the skills to equip you to see that those things are transient and they are there to develop and help you to grow. They're not there to stop your growth. And I've just been, living a wonderful, messy, gorgeous, happy, sad, great, awful, fabulous, terrible, marvelous life. And I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of it. I'm just
That's beautiful.
not afraid.
That's just beautiful. Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. So the reason I was asking, I just wanted the viewers to connect with you, because I know we're going to get into the more practical aspects of anxiety and everything else. But I wanted them to feel you, and I wanted them to feel validated through your experience that what you know what you're talking about. I know you know what you're talking about from the first moment you started talking, but I want them to feel that from you, And I remember when I went through my awakening, there were gradual moments throughout, but this one was where the wheels came off the car. You know what I mean? This was where, the whole illusion was exposed. And not only the illusion of the matrix, but the downloads were coming in simultaneously. Everything was all swirling around, truth and falsities. It was a mess. It was a complete mess. But out of that, I was able to start to discern what truth was and slowly navigate my way back into functioning, and then still carrying that awareness and having to integrate it into my daily life at a level that produces joy and happiness. Because what's the purpose of awakening if you can't integrate it in? Because awakening is certainly not enlightenment. You know what I mean? There's a process of stubbing your toe along the way, right? So let me ask you this. Go ahead.
It can be painful.
Yeah. But pain is the perception as well. I mean, afterwards, we can look and go, did I really need all that pain? Or could I just kind of gone for the ride a little bit easier, right?
Whatever we experienced. And the last thing we need to do is judge that. The process, our process is unique. Everybody on planet Earth is on a spiritual journey. We are all walking towards love. and we are all walking towards an opening up of who we really are and the capacity of the human psyche, the human mind, the human spirit. We have so much capacity, but that doesn't exclude the fact that on a day, and I'm not even going to call it a bad day, just an ordinary day, there are some times when I can feel grief to such an extent where I go to my knees and feel it, but I'm not frightened of it. I'm not frightened of, if you want to call grief pain. I'm not frightened of, I just say, come and sit here. It's a safe place for you to sit with me, grief. Come and sit with me, and I will honor you until I felt it, and I could be crying or wailing. I mean, wailing is such a wonderful
It's beautiful. That's so beautiful.
Let it in, and then when you acknowledge it and honor it, it lets go of you.
Yes, yeah. When you turn around and face it, and because so many people are frightened to,
Yeah,
including myself, as I was going through my life, emotions sometimes feel like they're going to swallow you alive. You know, like there's no way I'm going to live beyond the extent this emotion wants to take me. And we know that's not the truth. There was a point I was going to make, and then I just lost the connection. So what's
it's just an emotion that we need to honor. You know, we're so happy. Well, actually, we're not. When we're happy, we immediately think, "Oh, how long's that going to last?" And I just say, embody it, sit with it, feel it, just go with it in that moment. When you're feeling equally sad, do the same. It's an honoring of all of those emotions. Those emotions come from us because, you know, our left, our right brain, our creative thinking, our spiritual thinking, our hearts, our guts, it comes from all of that. And you know, honor that ability that we have to bring up the emotion that we need at the time to learn. I mean, people are talking a lot about COVID, and they're saying that they're stressed and they're they're pushed, they're frightened, they're depressed, they're overwhelmed. But if you're honest, if we're really honest, we were like that before COVID. We were absolutely.
Oh, I said at the very beginning that COVID was going to stir up things that was already existing. I even wrote some lengthy things about it. It was just exposing what already existed on the inside, accelerating the process. Absolutely.
And it brings so many other gifts to us, you know. It gave us the gift of isolation for a while. And I'm not saying that everybody survived that financially or economically, but there was a gift in there for that isolation. A lot of people slowed down. A lot of people started talking to their children and their grandchildren, and a lot of people started to honour what the presence is about.
Yeah. A relief, but also pretty scary for them sometimes too, because it's kind of hard to escape the present when it shows up big time. So here's what I was thinking before was this. Once we're conscious of the ascension process, when emotions come over with me now, like I could just be sitting there watching something and I'll just have tears coming down. And I don't even question where they're coming from. It's not necessary for me to identify them. I know I'm releasing. I know I'm going to allow the releasing process to run its course and not be attached to it, because it could be something happening releasing today. It could be 5 lifetimes ago. Who knows when that stuff is releasing from our body, right? And what it may be. But I'll just look at my wife and I go, I'm releasing something right now. And I'll just let the tears roll down, and yeah, no fear at all anymore. Almost a gratefulness that that level of sensitivity is there, so I can be in tune, you know? Yeah. So I can just not be ignorant of my emotions. Yeah.
And one of my points in the Book of Hope, may I do this?
You can do whatever you want, dear. Beautiful.
Is gratefulness, is about being grateful. I get up in the morning and I put my little feet over the end of the bed and I just look down and I say, oh, look at my beautiful little toes. Oh, and I'm walking through the bathroom and I'm grateful for my legs and I'm grateful for my heart and I'm grateful for, and I see myself in the mirror and I said, yeah, we're still there, honey.
That's
And I'm
beautiful.
grateful for that because it's a huge antidote for anxiety, being grateful, walking in gratitude every day, having that ability to notice no matter what is happening in life, to look at the things, the sun is shining, you have somewhere to sleep, you have food, you have shelter. There is so much for us to be grateful for. We have love, it's a huge antidote, and I'm really encouraging people to reboot that, because what you're saying is, as you're sitting on the couch, you're just accepting and being grateful for the fact that you can process this way. And I noticed what you said, you don't attach a story to what you're feeling, and that's a real key for me that I wrote about in the Book of Hope. We try and attach stories to things to try and make sense of the world. Not possible. And it's all historical anyway, because we're trying to, in retrospect, make sense of a feeling that we felt just a minute ago, or a feeling that we've been feeling all our lives, and it can't make sense of it. And the less that we can attach a story, we then get into our heads and try and make sense of it up there. And up there's never really made a lot of sense of it, ever, because it just goes around like music, on a loop. So just to be able to, like you did, feel it and just sit and just hold yourself in great respect and honour that you have the capacity to actually stop and feel this and own it and not argue with it or hate it or try and make it go away. In terms of healing, it's one of the most powerful things that we can do on planet Earth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So maybe you can explain the connection between hope and anxiety and why it's a value as an antidote, why hope is a value as an antidote for society, for anxiety.
Because ultimately we believe that we can get through whatever it is that we are experiencing at a given time. Hope is the ability to believe that we can muddle or glide or get through whatever it is, and to just remember that we are all standing in this moment right now because we are already a combination of so many experiences, so many great things, so many disastrous things, so many ordinary things, and we are still standing. And having that hope for the future and having that confidence in ourselves, hope ignites a confidence in ourselves that we are enough. I love that. And I often say this to myself, and I've always said it to my daughters. I am enough, I have enough, I do enough. And, it's true. And before COVID, we were on these little kind of rat cycles, where they go around in the circle and they go around that wheel. We were just trying to get to the future, and we were hurrying things up. And, the gift of I am enough in this moment. I am, just own that. I am enough right now in this moment. I do enough. You will die with a full in tray. I hope you do. I will. I do enough, and I am enough. Just yourself, as you are sitting there right now watching this lovely chat that we're having. Just, you are enough as you are right now. Don't have to do anything.
It's so counterintuitive.
Yes.
It's so counterintuitive.
Yes, we've got to rush and
yeah.
and
So
anxiety. Sorry, go on.
No. It's I I slow down sometimes to talk because I'm trying to fit my words in between the space that I'm experiencing, right? So I'm trying to articulate it as deeply as possible, but I kind of described it earlier, but it's so counterintuitive. We're so wired to be active and produce and produce and produce and produce and produce, and then second guess what we're producing. And should I have done that? Should I have done that? Should I have done that? And the route I'm taking these days is such the opposite. I am almost purposely not doing anything. Almost purposely. Go ahead. We just had some video issues. You just go ahead.
It's a hard thing to do nothing. It's a hard thing to just allow space between what you're feeling and doing, and to just allow yourself to sit in whatever it is that's happening right now. And then when you feel drawn to do something or drawn to move in a direction, to then follow that in how much we produce, as you say. And that's so untrue. Our value is just in being a human being. But you know, for a lot of people who are used to achievement, I'm very achievement oriented. I guess I must be, if, as you say, I've written a book every year. I'm very outcome driven, and for me to bring, I have to sit in the moment, and I take the time to meditate, and I make sure that I don't sit at my computer writing for more than 90 minutes at a time. I'll go out, I take myself outside into the sun and sit down onto my feelings seat. I've got a feeling seat in the garden, and I sit there and I just check in with myself, you know, and I sit there and say, okay, let's scan the body, see what's happening right now. Where am I feeling? Am I feeling in step? Am I feeling out of step? And if I find that I'm a little bit, adrenals are up a little, you know, maybe that heightened adrenal fatigue is up, I'll just sit there and say, that's okay, darling. Let's just give it some attention. So I just breathe into that part of my body, close my eyes, and I thank you for coming. We can calm down now. We need to take this time to reboot and reset. And I do that more and more now. And you know, even that's a discipline. So it's really interesting, isn't it?
Oh, it's a beautiful discipline. And an exercise that I do, that I was taught before, was I'll just connect my energies, and I'll connect my heart, my pineal, my soul star, the base of my spine, and the center of Mother Earth. And I actually put a pyramid over me, underneath my soul star, in my pineal, and every cell of my body. Then I align my body's energy and frequency to the magnetic. I align my body's energy and frequency to the magnetic polarity of the universe and Mother Earth. Okay, and then that act that was taught to me during my awakening, and it gave me hope that I was going to be okay. Because I knew that if I was feeling off, I can energetically align, raise my frequency, and then bypass all the lower frequency energies that were causing me to feel the way I was feeling, because I'm actively upgrading my body vehicle to a higher frequency, right? And so doing that as many times throughout the day as necessary. You know, if I'm feeling off, I just close my eyes and I see a ball of light, ball of light, ball of light, ball of light, ball of light in the Mother Earth, pyramid, 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 pyramid. I align my body's energy, frequency, magnetic polarity to the universal energy field of Mother Earth, and boom, I'm aligned, you know, and then that'll take me as long as it'll take me, if you know, and then until I have to do it again. You know, but I want to go back to the allowing. I'll give you an example. We moved to Hawaii about a month and a half ago, and I just wanted to get out of the mainland. I wanted to get to the most peaceful place I can be and not be disturbed. So we found that we're out in the jungle, okay, and So we found a house to rent for 3 months, and then we needed to find something else. So that's coming up in 12 days. We need to give notice, and I don't want to wait till the very end because I don't want to be stuck between a rock and a hard place. We find a place. Couple acres, gated, cheap, no application, no credit report. Just walk in, meet the woman, talk. It's what we want. Fill out the lease, done. Email the deposit from my phone to her account, done. Just smooth, like effortless. Just, it's flowing like that these days, you know? That's what's capable. It's flowing like that.
It is capable, and I think that we tune into that, the more that I call it sacred. In the 3 circles of customer service in my corporate work, you know, customer service to the customer service to the team, and customer service to self. But if we don't start with self, then the customer service that we offer others is not authentic. And it was, you know, it was pretty radical at that time, but true. And now I talk about sacred service. In chapter 3 in my book, I talk about how if we can learn to acknowledge ourselves, love ourselves, trust ourselves like you did, trust the path that you're on, and be kind to yourself and compassionate to yourself. You can't go down a wrong pathway. If you do, you just turn around to the left or the right. We can take ourselves to where we need to be, and we can trust that. Some of the things that I talk about with sacred service is let going of wanting approval from anybody. That's a big one to let go of. But for sacred service, that's where we need to go. Be kind to ourselves when we make mistakes. Speaking kindly to myself as if I was my own best friend. Being clear about my boundaries, knowing what I can and will and won't do. Huge. Not recruiting other people to believe my boundaries, me being clear about my boundaries, and then saying yes, no, or perhaps whatever it is I need to say. Acknowledging our achievements, big or small. You know, it doesn't have to be a biggie, it can be really small. Laughing more often, and especially at ourselves. Oh, we are so funny. We're hilarious. We are so funny. When we take ourselves seriously, we are particularly funny. And just to have that level of sacred service that I will not. And I was talking to a girlfriend the other day, and I think she was just feeling that she should support me. So she was saying not unkind things about my previous husband. And I said, darling, you don't need to say those things about him to support me. Please don't, because it's complicated. He is like that sometimes, but he's also a lot of other things as well. And right now in my life, I'm choosing to remember all the good stuff. And I need your support on that, okay?
Oh, it's beautiful.
I said, wow, I hadn't thought about that. And she said, yeah, I was just trying to way that we're not just black and white. He's not black and white. He's a lot of wonderful things as well as a lot of silly things. And we need to honor all of those things in each of us, because anything that hurts me, I don't want to, I want to accept and say, okay, I don't want to hurt myself. You know, I don't want anyone else to hurt me, but it's me that hurts me the most, and that's what happens with most of us, and I'm not prepared to do that.
Absolutely. So here's what I tell people in the same way that you say it, but in my own words, is this: how I respond to life in the present determines my next life experience. And at some point, I wanted to be sincerely happy. So I needed to be able to take a beat to respond, because I love myself enough to provide my next experience in life to be a beautiful experience. So regardless of how somebody is behaving with me, my life experience is determined by my response. And if I can every moment be a pearl, and I can string those moments together, I can look back and see a string of pearls, and I can see I've consciously created a beautiful life based on my response in the present moment. And that was profound for me, because it made me realize that present moment is pregnant with possibilities and choices. And I get to choose the choice if I'm not triggered by unconscious trauma, which most of us take a lifetime to avoid, right? And that's where I'm saying it all seems like all roads lead to that unconscious trauma, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because when I kind of had this sense of this not being the only time that I've been here, or the only time that I will be here, from a very young age, and I don't know. I don't believe in reincarnation. It's just a knowingness. It's not a belief structure. It's just a really deep knowingness. And quite recently, my beautiful, beautiful little darling dog, Hamish, died, and I had the privilege of holding him as he died. And I was talking to him, and I was thanking him for being such a wonderful friend to me, and such an inspiration, such a creative inspiration. And I whispered in his ear, "Darling, I know you're going to go on and make another family so happy. I just hope they give you a stronger body next time." And he just looked at me and said goodbye. And I just thought, what a privilege that he was going on to that next thing, to give the love that he gave so willingly here to the next place. And I didn't know that, just felt it.
I remember being 3.5 years old. My mom sends me into bed for my afternoon nap. And I'm sitting on my bed, and I start to ask myself some questions. Why do we have a house? Why are there cars? Why is there a planet Earth? Why is there anything from stopping me from falling in nothingness? I remember having that feeling at 3.5 years old. And
that's still a good question.
Well,
really
because I exist eternally.
Yeah.
There's no beginning and end.
No.
There's no beginning and end. I exist eternally. I am the awareness of the consciousness that is operating through my body. That's the essence of me. And I feel we don't die. We can't die, because I'm an energy being. And as we know, energy doesn't die. It just gets transformed. It just mutates into another form. So, I'm eternal.
I try not to get caught up in what's happening next, because this is such a valuable lifetime. This is a really special place.
Yeah,
planet Earth.
Absolutely.
It's always special on planet Earth. This is a really good gig.
It is.
It's a really special gig right now. You know, this is a time of great awakening. This is a great time of great learning and power for people who are able to give themselves another sacred service. So it's a very special time, but no matter how special it gets, still a human being having a human experience on planet Earth. And the triggers that we get are really interesting. And I've done a lot of work on my triggers, and, you know, other people have helped me, not necessarily in the way that I thought would be nice, but gosh, you don't really help somebody unless the trigger really lands, baby. So it's fine however it lands. But a woman, another wonderful American writer, Myron Katie, she writes about the 4 questions when we have a thought. Is it true? Is it absolutely true? What do I get for having this feeling? Story, because of her worksheets that she has on www.thework.com. And her worksheets, because I'm a great writer, I write, okay, that's obviously what I do, but I also write a journal. So if I'm having challenge, I write a journal every morning. So I journal my stuff out because the journal enables me to find my own solutions. And she has that you're feeling at the moment. And usually on that worksheet, the same as a journal, very much similar in context, you usually find your part in it. And that's the thing about a trigger, you know, not reacting to it, but finding your part in it. So if I'm triggered, and usually it's by someone you love, that's part of the contract. I usually, if it's one that really hits me, I try and get away from the area as soon as possible. I just say, look, I need some time to digest that, because otherwise, when we're triggered, we then say something that triggers the other person, and you've got madness, and it's just going nowhere, and nothing can be solved. But I find if I go away and I sit quietly and I actually find in my body where that trigger landed, sometimes it'll be in the gut, sometimes it'll be in the chest, sometimes it'll be in my throat. Just sit with that without attaching a story to it about what just happened, because that's not the time. You can do that later. This is not the time for it. Now is the time to honour the trigger, like you did when you were sitting on the couch and let the tears. You just honoured that, whatever was triggered. You just honoured it and didn't try and put a story to it. So I think it's very powerful to do that. And again, and people say to me, but, you know, won't you be just absorbed by grief? And I said, in actual fact, no. Because if you honour it, it then leaves you, because you've honoured it, and you say, okay, and then you take back your power, your personal power, which is love, and then you can continue on, not necessarily going back out into the environment that you were in, but continue on for your own sake.
And that's where boundaries come.
Just repeating this.
Yes, and that's where boundaries come in. You know, you don't have to. Let's say somebody triggered us, and let's say they had their own trigger, and they were actually out of line with how they behaved with us. Well, we don't even have to respond in a way that really exemplifies our trigger. We can acknowledge it, create a boundary that allows us space enough to either let that person exist in our life or not exist in our life. We don't have to stop caring for them, but we don't have to spend time with them. And so I noticed that my triggers and my boundaries kind of go hand in hand, depending on who I'm dealing with, depending on how much responsibility I need to take for my reaction. And I'm willing to take I take 100% responsibility first always. That's just that's where I start. I just start there, you know?
Absolutely. I'm moving around the room because I need to put the battery. I need to get my battery is low. So I just need to plug in, and we've got. Let me just check my time. Yeah, we've got about another 10 minutes, I think. How are you going for time?
I'm good. I usually try to keep these just around an hour because that seems to be the attention span of people. You know, if they see it's too long, maybe they won't engage. You know what I mean?
Well,
But I'll be on,
wrap.
I'll be honest with you. I got so many more questions and so many more things to talk to you about because I
Let's
no, we'll do another one because you're so grounded, you're so conscious, you've had so much experience. Um, there's nuances we can get into regarding the subtleties of what we're talking about that I think people could really benefit from. And the simplicity of the things we talked about today are, I feel, very impactful. You know, we've had some internet issues today on both of our sides that have frozen the screen from time to time. You know, but I think they're going to be okay. Okay, you're a doll. You're an absolute doll. You are so aware and you have so much good information. You know, there's a good friend of mine that lives out here in Hawaii that actually drew me to Hawaii. His name's Alan Shelton. He wrote a book called Awaken Leadership. And he's worked with the likes of Boeing and IBM and Nike and Vans and worked with their corporate teams and et cetera, et cetera. And we're talking about working together right now on a pretty large scale. And Alan's a real enlightened individual, and and he comes through and he says, allow life to live you. Get out of the way. Allow it to live you. And so my experience with Alan is constantly, well, let's just see what wants to happen, Ron. Let's just see what wants to happen. And it's the opposite. It's the opposite. And we have to trust enough the risk of doing that nothing to see what emerges. And then once it starts to emerge, oh God, I drove myself crazy, Vicki, saying I am not going to do anything that I'm not inspired to do. As a matter of fact, in 2013, I took a year and I went and lived by the beach and I sold everything that wouldn't fit into 3 suitcases. And all I had was my bike, my beach bike. And I said, every day for the next year, I'm going to wake up. I'm only going to do what I want to do.
What a privilege.
And I would wake up and say, what are you going to do today, Ron? And I'd say, whatever you freaking want to do, that's what you're going to do today. And I had to discipline myself to do that because I wanted to find out, what is it that drives this guy? What is it that drives me? So now, as I'm letting life live me, people have to trust to feel, oh, that's the inspiration. Okay, I'm going to go that direction. And that's where we're going. That's where we're going with consciousness. That's where we have to support people on getting to where they're actively, consciously creating. And that's what you do. That's what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think that that's a good way to finish up today, that idea of trust, trusting yourself, trusting that you are at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. There's a lot of discussion right now all around the world about trusting leaders. And it's about trusting ourselves first. We are our leader. We are our own leader. If we can tune into that which you were just speaking of, and trust the combination of your wisdom, your knowledge, your life lessons, your life learning, your experiences, and trust that to do the next thing and the next thing, then we have a planet of leaders. And that's where we need to go with this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's really beautiful, Vicki. We're going to have to do this again and choose a subject that we can dive into. And so So people can access you at Vicki Bennett with 2 N's and 2 T's.com.au.
Yes,
Yes?
V-I-C-K-I, 2 I's, V-I-C-K-I, Bennett.
Okay. And the name of your book and where they can find that?
Hello, on that website. There you go, The Book of Hope.
The Book of Hope, beautiful. And Vicki, it's been great having you on. I think we have a little bit
today.
You're a doll. I love talking to you. You've just you're extraordinarily authentic. Everything's right on the sleeve. You're a consciously awake individual that's making a difference on the planet. And it's really wonderful connecting and meeting with you. Honestly, really just a pleasure for me. So having said that, I want to thank you. And this has been the Journey to Awakening podcast. I'm your host, Ron Ario, and we'll see you on the other side.